Nigerians heaved a heavy sigh of relief when the Abuja-Kaduna Railway began operations. But lately, this has been happening. We'll have you watch.
The reason why you have
you know what it is? This is 2 a.m. This is 2 a.m. This is not happening. What kind of problem is this?
No, this one.
No, they should tell us now. Let's know what the problem is. If you are keeping quiet, they are not doing anything. We are keeping quiet. We are keeping quiet. They are not doing anything.
Emotions very high there because the trains broke down and the passengers, of course, are complaining. The passengers are complaining that, in fact, the issue was that nobody, and it broke down in the wee hours of, I think, the morning, and nobody, as I read, came to talk to them at all about why it broke down, what happened, and that was the height of irresponsibility. At least, the least they could expect is that someone would come and say, look, it broke down. All right, we'll just continue with the rest of the story. So what's really happening? Why are these new trains breaking down? And what's the update on the Lagos-Ibadan, Kano, Maradi, Port Harcourt, Maiduguri, as well as other rail lines? Well, the man in charge is here as we cross live to our Abuja studio, while the managing director, Nigerian Railway Corporation, Fidet Ohiria, joins us now. Glad to have you join us, sir. Fidet, let me begin by congratulating you on your reappointment as the MD of NRC for the second and final 4-year tenure effective 20th October 2020. And let me begin, that's by the way, the trains, these are new locomotives. Why are they breaking down? And why is nobody telling the people or being responsible enough to tell the people this is why, this is the next thing that will happen?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Nigerians. It's a pleasure being here. And first of all, I have to appreciate Nigerians and my principals for having the confidence by reappointing me for another 4 years. We apologize for the breakdown of the locomotive that was carrying the train, but I don't believe it was 2 a.m. because our last train get to destination by 8 p.m. So on that very day, we had issue with the new locomotive, and we have to step it aside to allow the manufacturer, because we have two years service level agreement with them.
So are you able to give us a bit more clarity? Sorry, I don't want us to have a situation where we're kind of fizzling away from the point of Indy's question there. I know that you've acknowledged that the train did in fact break down, but can you give us specifics as to why it broke down? I don't think people are too concerned about the time, but definitely the causes for the breakdown. If you could start there.
Okay. On that day, the fitters discovered that there was water leakage in the turbocharger. I don't think that's what you start explaining to passengers on train. They told them that the train has broken down and an arrangement have to be made for a relief locomotive to come back to the point of breakdown. And you know, in train operation, especially when you are running a single line, you have to follow the law and order to avoid accident, because security and safety is paramount. So you don't just deploy another locomotive to go for relief. You have to make sure you get relevant clearance and permission to go for the relief. So that's what happened that day. We have an axle problem on that particular locomotive. And when they arrived at the workshop, we took us 2 days to fix it back. And
it does seem as though while Nigerians could,
after that breakdown,
if I could come in here, it does seem as though while Nigerians, I'd imagine, are very much. Definitely. While Nigerians are welcoming this innovation in terms of public transport, it is a good thing. It does seem as though there are lots of issues. So if we focus on the Lagos-Ibadan railway line, for example, when will that be completed? Because I think that might be a pressing issue for a lot of people who are going to be reaping the benefits of this service. We're always hearing of all of these new railway lines being commissioned. Another one is due to be commissioned this week, I believe. If we were to start with Lagos-Ibadan, for example, when will that be complete?
Okay, but we have to get things right. For instance, for 5 years, we have operated Lagos-Abuja. I will just have one instance of serious incident. So Nigerians should know that it's not a daily occurrence. And after that breakdown, we'll be operating. And on Monday, the 7th, we are going to start commercial operation. As a trial of trial, a train will leave Ibadan by 7 a.m. on Monday, the 7th. And by 4, another one will leave Lagos to Ibadan. So we want to give room for the contractor to have enough room to complete the station and fix the switches at the station. And by the time we commission in January, we will have 8 trains doing 2 trips per day, which means 16 round trips a day for Lagos Ibadan. So the commercial operation will start on Monday, the 7th.
Okay, and then looking at the Ibadan-Kano rail line, when will work on that commence, and how many kilometers are you expecting to get through, and in what time?
We are talking at about 1,000 kilometers, over 1,000 kilometers. And the construction is going to be done in segment by segment, working simultaneously. From Kano to Kaduna to link up with the Kaduna Abuja line. And you have Ibadan Ilorin, the Ilorin Mina and Mina Abuja. Abuja. And the contractor is being advised and being instructed to deploy simultaneously so that the job will be completed on time and Nigeria can enjoy the benefit of what the government is doing.
Sorry, when you say, pardon me, when you say on time, when are you projecting to have the job completed by?
What we'll be talking about, when are we hoping to get the fund? The government, Nigerian government has made their own counterpart fund available. And, you know, we have to get the funding. For now, it's the Chinese Exim Bank that the government of Nigeria is negotiating with. And we hope with the National Assembly support, we will get it through. Because you cannot just go for loan without the National Assembly approving it.
Let me take you back to the Lagos-Ibadan rail line. The president will commission that rail line by January 2021, that's next year. But operation commences on November with 16 trips. This is December. So did you achieve that goal? And what did it take? And is the president still going to commission it in 2021?
We didn't. Hopefully, yes. We hope that, yeah, January. Yeah, because by now, nobody would have been talking about construction again in Lagos, Ibadan. Nobody knew that we are going to have COVID. So, so that's why I taught us a lesson that when we fix a date, we should also leave it for other things that can happen. We are working hard to ensure that by January, because the track from Butemeta to Ibadan, Ammonia is ready, and we'll be using it for, I think, even before COVID. So the stations is where they are concentrating now, and they are promising us in December ending, they will deliver 6 of those medium-sized stations, while in January, they will deliver the mega stations. That's Monia, Bekuta, Apapa, and Butemeta.
Let me talk to you a little bit about your IGR. Your IGR as of September 30th stood at 1.4 billion naira as against 4 4.4 billion that you projected, and you remitted 245 million to the TSA. What factors worked at variance with your projections for 2020? You didn't meet your 4.4 billion that you projected.
Okay. You see, from March till August, there was no operation due to COVID. Then in September, we started till now skeletal service. So the 16 trains we were running from within Lagos Mass Transit, and 1 week a train to Kano, and the container movement we were moving out from the Apapa port had to stop because of COVID and the construction of the trying to get the track, the modernized track into the Apapa port. Till now we are still into that construction to enter the Apapa port, and we are not able to move containers out of the port by rail. So that drastically affected our earning. So before now, till March, when the government directed and approved the e-ticketing, and there was a proviso that a certain amount should be paid and not touched to the federal account. And we have started when that contribution started when we resumed train operations in September.
If I could shift our attention towards another rail line, that is Kano Maradi. Can you give us a bit more insight on what point is the discussion for the loan to commence? At what point are we going to discuss the funding needed to begin that project? And if you can, on top of that, tell us when you're looking at starting work on that specific line. That's Kano Maradi.
Okay, our ambition to ensure anything we are doing will end it by first quarter of 2023. The contract has been approved, and as I said earlier, you don't just go because that is I think it's going to be a concession track. They are providing the funding. The company, I think in Europe, will be doing that, and we are going to supporting them and ensuring that the track from Kano to Maradi comes into effect by 2023.
Okay, let's look at Port Harcourt to Maiduguri, that rail line. At what point are the plans going to commence on that project? Do you have funds for it, or are you still sourcing for funds?
Okay, I will go back. You know, that what we are working on is a standard gauge line from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri and linking all the eastern and middle line states to ensure we meet up with the government policy, saying that all state capitals and mineral producing area and potential industrial area should be linked by rail for the commerce of Nigeria to get a boost. And while sourcing for about $13 billion, the government have to bend backwards, and we agree that we don't wait to get $13 billion, since why don't we work on the narrow gauge to move the speed from the 40 kilometers per hour to about 80 kilometers per hour. And we think that it's a good idea to do that by ensuring we reduce the gradient, increase the poundage of the rail, and make it all concrete and continuous weathered track. And they also increase the ASO load so that you can carry heavier loads. And that is about $3.2 billion. And I think it makes sense to do that while sourcing the $30 billion. And we hope by next year we'll be able to start, if all other things being equal.
All right, Fidet, let me bring in this. With the incessant loss of lives and destruction of vehicles due to trailer accidents on our roads, one keeps wondering, why are the rail lines not being used to transport, fuel instead of having, and heavy haulage, instead of having these heavy-duty trucks ply our roads? Are you discussing that? Are we thinking about that?
No, we've been discussing that for over 4 years. I was the director of mechanical electrical, and to encourage people, we brought in 40 brand new pressurized tank wagons, and they are still available within our yards. And we have been holding meetings with the various petroleum distribution company. But, you know, government business is not like private business. The government business is to provide service and ensure that people have peace of mind while they do their business. Why a typical businessman wants to make his profit yesterday, no patience to wait for tomorrow. So, so we are trying to encourage them to use the rail, because we can move 20 tank wagons of 44,000 liters at a go, and you don't have issue of shortages and accidents, because at least we will go at a regulated speed, and that speed will take you from Kano to Lagos with a narrow gauge line within 48 hours, which no road tanker can do. But we'll be meeting up today, they will say, okay, tomorrow we are coming. But as additional, you see, there is what they call the equalizing fund, which I think if you use the rail, you have to play strictly to the rule, and there's no shortcuts, which I think they have what they do with the road.
Okay, well, moving from fuel transportation to people transportation, what about the Itakpe-Warri rail line? We know it was commissioned by Mr. President recently. Has it commenced commercial operations? Yeah. And what is the passenger traffic on it like?
You see, when you start an operation, we have started. We are expecting it to build up. Like when we started Abuja, Kaduna, we are getting 10 passengers, 20 passengers. But in Itakpe-Warri, I think we have gotten to 300 passengers already, because it's quicker to link up from the south to Itakpe by rail than by road. So we can make that journey in 3 hours from Warri to Itakpe, and by the time we continue, we hope to reduce it to 2 hours, 15 minutes. But the issue is that we don't operate daily in order to also make balance the commands involved in introducing a new trade service.
So it definitely appears as though...
So that's what we are doing, and it's building up gradually. And the beauty of that line is that we hope to, the AKK project, we are discussing with them to move their pipes seriously. And there are a lot of pipes they are bringing in to be taken to our Jakarta.
So in terms of moving people, then it does appear that there are things to definitely be looking forward to. But I'd also imagine that also uncovers a certain amount of concerns that I'm sure you would have. If we look at the Abuja-Kaduna railway line, for example, what is the NRC doing in terms of security of passengers and goods? Because it's one thing to ensure that they can travel, but you definitely want to keep them safe as they do so. So what plans do you have in place to do just that?
So we all have a full command of the Nigerian police with us as a state. We also have a full command of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps. Full command like you have in state with us. And we are also trying to deploy technology into securing the people. All our coaches we are bringing have a CCTV on them, and they have a monitoring room where you can monitor the passenger. And at the same time, we've installed walk-through scanner, we've installed baggage scanner at the stations, and we have handheld scanner. And we ensure that every coach, you have 2 policemen wearing uniform, and we also have the DSS in plain clothes in the station and in the coaches. So as I tell people, I can boast that I'm a train operation expert, but I don't have that security, because we still work with our various security agents in the country.
One state of mind.
Make sure that we encourage them and make sure they come in and secure the train for our people.
One state of mind is very important, especially for somebody like you, the MD of NRC. Let me ask you about the ugly incident of the kidnap of your wife for about 13 days. She was with gunmen who were dressed in police uniform. It must have been a harrowing experience for you and, of course, for her. And the commissioner said that they are in need. What's the latest development on that? Have they been able to get the people who kidnapped your wife?
That's one thing I don't want to
talk about.
Remember,
okay.
I don't normally talk about. What I do
right,
to give
then,
praise
let's talk
to
about
God that my wife came out alive and is here.
All right, fine. Let's talk about the economic viability of this rail project, especially when you factor in the loans. And what are the economic implications of these varied rail projects on our own economy?
Okay, normally what I tell people is that as a nation, should we have a means of moving from place to place? And should we, if we need it, do we have to construct a rail, which is a mass mover of people and goods? And we believe that when we have the rail in place, the road will last longer. That peace of mind to travel will be there, and you can travel in comfort with rail. So all those things, you don't quantify in naira and kobo. Sometimes when I pass through the stadium, when I'm going through the stadium, when people ask me questions, I say, do people ask, how do you recover the money for building the stadium? Do you talk about how people recover the overhead bridges? These are services that government need to provide for people for the citizens to be happy and do their work and where the money comes from very effectively. But so if I have a good train service, why can't I use the train from Abuja to Lagos?
Sorry, I was going to interject.
And does it prevent you from work?
Yeah, bear with me. I just wanted to come in on that and say, but we're constantly being told that it's not about taking loans or getting into debt, but more about having a projected plan of how to repay those loans. And, the average businessman will say you need to tender a feasibility study before you embark on any project. So I'm just curious as to what extent have you done a feasibility study on maybe the number of passengers you're expecting to transport or goods, and how you repay the loans you've incurred?
In the past 20-25 years, feasibility has been done on all this rail service, and they continue to change when the situation in the world also changes. So there is a feasibility study, and you don't believe, if you come for me for a loan, my first question is to say, how do I get my money back? And any country that wants to give another country loan also asks that question. They are not just saying we have the money, let's throw it up. They are not doing donation. The beauty of that, what we have done so far, that the Chinese has agreed to give a concessionary loan, which we are tapping on. So I don't believe they do their due diligence. Every bank have a consultant, and they come to us, and they come to Nigeria, they come to Minister of Finance, and they ask a lot of questions, both environmental impact analysis and other economic indices that they look at. So they look at it before granting the nation, and they know how reliable and how far you have been performing on loan granted to the nation. Otherwise, they would have gone to other countries and be doing this, but they limit themselves to where they go to. So the fear of whether it will be paid back or not, I think there's a program for that within the Ministry of Finance and the Budget Office.
Are you able to shed any more light? I want to go back to Lagos, Ibadan, and the constructions happening there. Are you able to shed any more light on requests for loans? We know that perhaps earlier this week, or within the last week or so, the Nigerian government has come out to say that they did not request additional funds for that project itself. Is that something that you can comment on to give us a bit more clarity on what's happened there?
No, I don't know where that information came out from. When we are concluding, we are wrapping up. Today, there is a handing over process going on right now with some of my director and ministry people on the track. So I don't know where they got that idea that Nigeria is asking for more loan for Lagos Ibadan. I've never heard of that. But
all right, Philip. You want to talk to us about NRC's introduction of another train on the Lagos-Ogun Transit, and what informed this?
Another train.
On the Lagos-Ogun Transit.
Okay, mass transit. Okay, before the COVID, we were running 16 trains. So when we started, in order to obey the COVID protocol, we just started with a one return trip. And we are trying to bring back all the services that we stopped, and we are working on the rolling stock, because if you have kept a rolling stock for 6 months, we believe that at least we should touch them, and we are doing that. And we just want to meet up with our normal schedule that we have before now.
Okay, you've been on this journey, if I may use that expression, for a while, in terms of, and your vision, as far as I gather, is to link all the states by rail. So could you just give us your own impression of maybe in 5 years' time where you see Nigeria, how will be the better if all these projects are achieved? Where do you see us at?
So how we appeal that Nigerians and small, big, or little should support this idea of not just rail, having infrastructure that can test the test of time. Because when you have this rail, you are not going to rebuild them. The generation coming will not be talking about it. They will be talking about using it and maintenance. So I believe with the present government, with the will and this thing they have to have rail all over the place, at least we are talking about linking Itakbe to Abuja. And when you do that, you have linked Warri to Kaduna, that's already in place. And we are talking about linking Kano to Kaduna, which is part of the Lagos-Kano. And we are now talking about reconstruction of the eastern axis and having the branch line from Kafachan to Kaduna with a big base where you have to transship from standard to narrow gauge. And you don't forget about the east-west, that's what we call the coastal rail line. That is also a dream. We hope that when all these things are done, industry will, people, because when you have idea of how to grow and plant industries, and because of the limitation of movement of what you produce to the market, I think it used to slow down investors. But when the rail is built and they know it's available to move either the raw material to site and the finished product to the market, I think the investor will be encouraged. It's an incentive for the industry to boom.
What of the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt, Maiduguri Eastern Line Rail, or has it commenced? Talk to us about it, just very briefly.
No, it has not commenced. The FEC just approved it, and the finalization of the agreement is in place because, you have to go to our Attorney General office for vetting, and the company will also vet it. That's where we are. We are hoping that they will start very early because they have gone round with our men and with the company, trying to, because as I said earlier, they are going to straighten the curves and remove gradients. So while we are maintaining the old route, but there are some areas which they have to move out of the old route so that the track can be straight. A place, I don't know whether you've used the train on the axis, there's a place called Lagalanga, which is a multiple reverse curve. And we are also branching out into a place where we have the industrial, rail industrial park, and we are going to the deep sea port in Port Harcourt, and we'll also be branching to Damaturu. So they have just come back from that study and the survey. So we hope by January or thereabout, action will start.
All right, Engineer Fidet Talent Ohiria, Managing Director, Nigeria Railway Corporation, thank you so much for your time on Newsday.